3 Israeli hostages were freed after 491 days in Hamas captivity. In exchange, Israel has released 183 Palestinian prisoners, including 18 serving life sentences and 111 detained during the war. Escorted by gun-toting masked Hamas militants, 3 emaciated Israeli hostages, Eli Sharabi, Levi, and Ohad Ben-Ami, operated on stage in Gaza before their release. They appeared weak and in a worse condition than the 18 hostages freed last month.
I plead. I am being released now because of a deal. The deal is because of negotiations. I plead that the second and third deals will be implemented. This framework, that the war will be ended, and that us, all of the prisoners, will safely return home.
The 3 freed Israeli hostages were first handed over to the Red Cross before being taken to a facility near the border for medical checks and to meet their families. A video distributed by the Israeli army showed Ohad Ben-Ami as he arrived at a military facility near the Gaza border with the army and hugging his wife and brother. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the return of the hostages but condemned what he called the shocking images of the handover, saying they will not pass without response. The October Council, representing the families of the Hamas attack victims, compared images of the hostages to photos of Holocaust survivors and demanded a full probe into what they call the worst failure in the history of the state. Hamas has in turn accused Israel of adopting a policy it described as the slow killing of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails after 7 inmates freed on Saturday were admitted to hospital. Families and friends of hostages were overjoyed to see their loved ones being freed.
This is a glory day. We are very happy, but we still remember that we have 1 alive and we hope to get them next week, and 6 other that we have to bring them back to proper buried.
In Tel Aviv, celebrations broke out as at Hostage Square, people were seen crying as they watched the release of the hostages from Hamas captivity. In the occupied West Bank, a bus carrying Palestinian prisoners freed by Israel in exchange for Gaza hostages arrived in Ramallah as part of the 5th hostage prisoner swap. In other news, the Israeli military says it carried out an airstrike on a Hamas weapons storage facility in Deir Ali in southern Syria. The army also released footage showing what it claims is a strike on the facility. In Tehran, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei met with acting Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya and other senior officials. Iran, a main backer of Hamas, released no details about the meeting and just released photos. Mr. Heino Klink is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia. He's now joining us live on this broadcast from DC. Mr. Klink, good to see you again. What do you make of this prisoner exchange and the hostage exchange? Because Israel is not happy of how the hostages are being treated. Hamas is not happy of how the Palestinian prisoners are being treated. Where do we draw the line here?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think my reaction is probably reflective of that of most of your viewers, in that we're shocked at the physical condition of these hostages that were most recently released. And frankly, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, we commemorated the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration camp. And these images, again, of these 3 gentlemen are reminiscent of those that were liberated from Auschwitz. That being said, there is a deal between Hamas and Israel. We try to be optimistic that the other phases of the deal can be implemented so that we have potentially a lasting ceasefire that could be the foundation for some sort of longer lasting peace agreement. I think, though, we have to realistically recognize that there will be no peace with Hamas in charge of Gaza. And again, this most recent release of Israeli hostages just underscores the inhumanity of Hamas. And we have to remember, it is an internationally recognized terrorist organization. So for long-lasting peace in the region, Hamas cannot be in power.
Mr. Klink, now that you've said that, what do you think about the proposals being made by the West, including the United States and President Trump, who says that the U.S. is going to take over Hamas, take over Gaza and rebuild Gaza, but that has drawn a lot of condemnation across the world?
Well, if anything, President Trump's proposal is bold. And again, I think most of us can agree that regardless of that specific proposal, and again, there were just broad outlines that were released. It's not as if there's a specific plan that is on the table, but just broad outlines. And I think what we should focus on is we need bold proposals. We need new ideas. The region has been at each other's throats for generations now. And I think all agree that we want a lasting peace. We want a lasting peace in which Israelis and Arabs can both prosper. Now the question is going to be, if we assume that what has happened in the past has not led to any type of long-lasting peace, and I think history has demonstrated that time and time again, we have to have new proposals. Now, the president's is one proposal. I think that, yes, the international community has reacted not particularly positively. Specifically, the Arab nations have not reacted particularly positively. But let's see what other proposals this may generate. One thing we know is that the past has not worked and that we need new thinking in order to chart a path to long-term peace and prosperity in the region.
Mr. Heino Klink, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your insights and for talking to us today.
Thank you.